Hello aspirants, looking at editorials in question bank for 12th December. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper is Arrest of a Military Chief. So this is regarding the arrest of former Air Chief Marshal S.P. Tyagi by the CBI recently. We have discussed this completely in detail in the news on 10th December. Also another article on 11th December in the Hindu detailed out completely about former two army chiefs who were also having charges of corruption against them and how those cases were dealt with. So these are briefly mentioned here, not much in detail. We have completely covered them in detail, but going through the basics about it once again. So this was regarding the VVIP helicopters deal, the 6,000-meter criteria which was fixed as the service ceiling for these helicopters in the initial tender given by the government of India resulted in only one eligible candidate, that was Eurocopter. We have discussed all this, I am repeating it. So then the changes were done, modification was done, and the 4,500-meter service ceiling was put. So that would be the height up to which the helicopter should be able to fly. So this resulted in Augusta Westland also becoming eligible, otherwise earlier it was not. So Augusta Westland is a UK based firm, but it is part of the Italian consortium, Italian firm which is Finmeccanica. So this Finmeccanica has also been blacklisted in India, then partial blacklist has been done, complete ban was ended. All this we have already discussed. So these are just brief, passing reference has been made to everything in this editorial. So what is there is 12% of the total deal was allegedly given as commission, and there is money trail here involved and which came out through an Italian radio. So since this corruption was unearthed there, Indian agency CBI also undertook investigation and they have arrested SP Tyagi and others involved in this case. The earlier cases which were there are in 1987 regarding the German-made HDW submarines case against then Admiral SM Nanda, but then this case was closed by CBI saying that they have no concrete evidence. So this was the end of this case. In 2006 again they filed, CBI filed an FIR on the purchase of Barak missile systems from Israel against Admiral Sushil Kumar. But then here too Admiral Sushil Kumar filed various RTIs, eventually proving himself right that the Barak missile system had to be purchased, because the charges were that when India was developing its own Trishul system, then why was Barak missile system required? But then he proved that Trishul missile system, Trishul's project was converted into a technology demonstrator. So that was only a lab experiment. So there was no missile available with us. So this Barak missile was required to be purchased by India. So this too again he proved himself to be right and the case had to be closed. So these were the cases. You can look at the articles on 11th and 10th and 11th December to get the complete details as well. The next editorial in the Hindu newspaper is a brutal victory in Aleppo. So this is regarding Aleppo city in Syria, and Syrian government is fighting to capture it from the rebels. Now remember, this is rebels. Rebels are different from IS. So Syrian government is fighting against IS and is also fighting against rebels. And rebels are also fighting against IS. So Islamic State is a terrorist group, but then these rebels, of course the Syrian government calls them terrorists, but these are people who want Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president, to step down, because there was a wave of revolution, people's revolution against the present regime of Bashar al-Assad. He has been in power for decades, so they wanted him to step down, but Bashar al-Assad refused to oblige and he came down heavily against the rebels and the whole civil war erupted. So these rebels are supported by US and Syrian government is supported by Russia. So Syria is Shia majority country, so Shia, even Bashar al-Assad government is a Shia government, so these Shia countries support Bashar al-Assad. So Shia countries like Iran is a major ally of Bashar al-Assad, and Sunni countries support the rebels. So these are all the complications. Sunni countries are like Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So Sunni and Shia are two sects in Islam. So this whole complication makes the matter worse, and presently Aleppo, which is under the control of rebels, the Russian air force is providing cover and the government is able to move ahead. So this, through Russian support, they are able to capture almost the entire of Aleppo. In a few days it would go out of the rebel hands. This was one of the first cities to fall in the hands of rebels in 2012. So now this will be regained. But then there is another aspect of the huge humanitarian crisis and disaster during the war. So this has resulted in indiscriminate bombing and killings. And Russia and Syria are also, Russian and Syrian government are also accused of indiscriminate bombings which have resulted in killings of various civilians. So the rebels put such allegations against them, and to counter that, the government says, Syrian government says that these places are controlled by terrorists, because according to them, rebels are terrorists who have picked up arms against the government. So because they are under terrorists, we have no other option but to bomb these cities, even if it results in civilian casualties. So it's a huge humanitarian crisis here. Plus also the rebels are charged that they don't allow civilians to have an exit. So when the Russian government and the Syrian government capture some region, they allow the civilians to move out, but rebels hold them back to make sure that they are also protected. So they act as a shield for them. So if there are civilians, the expectation is that the government would not bomb them, but that was also proved wrong. So to come out of this crisis, what is required is that negotiations take place, a peace deal comes forth. There were some peace talks between USA and Russia earlier too, but then the truce did not stay for long. So both started fighting again, accusing each other of initiating it. So what is required now is to bring in peace, to remove this region from a disaster which is spilling over. The refugees from here are spilling over into Europe, and Europe is also facing the huge refugee crisis, and the political dimensions there are changing, with countries becoming conservative, nationalist, not allowing refugees. So all these developments which are taking place because of this civil war taking place in Syria. So this you can see, Syria and Iraq both are neighbors. These pink regions, we have already discussed this in news also, when we discussed about Palmyra being taken over. So this was, Palmyra is under IS. So this you can see, Syrian government and IS are fighting here. Aleppo is between, purple is Syrian rebel forces and Syrian government. So that is there. IS has presence in both Iraq and Syria. Even the editorial, next we are discussing the Indian Express editorials. Even Indian Express editorial talks about Aleppo war only. So it's been 4 years and Aleppo is still under the rebels, being captured by the government now. Almost the entire city will soon come in their hands. But then what is the cost which is being paid? So that is also again discussed here. So one point put forth here is, USA has slowed down, USA is not putting enough pressure, and Russia is gaining an upper hand here, because of which even Bashar al-Assad regime is strengthened. So because US has been fighting a war for so long, so they may be tired, they don't want to end up further escalating the tensions. But then what is required is again food, medical aid should reach this region. This humanitarian truce is required. So that is what US is presently talking of to, that Russia should show some grace, come forward, have talks and bring in truce. So USA presently is pro peace. The next editorial in the Indian Express newspaper is Binding Friendship. So this we have discussed in news today. This is regarding the defense status which has been provided to the India by USA, that we are a major defense partner. So this major defense partner status bestowed through an act is of significance. So this will make us come closer to USA, which was not the case in 1971 during the Bangladesh Liberation War, India-Pakistan War of 1971, when Bangladesh was formed as an independent nation. At that time, USA was firmly against India. So it sent its fleet to Bay of Bengal to threaten India too, because USA then was supporting Pakistan. So now it is the other way around. It says that now fleets would come to India in Bay of Bengal to support India, to show its, because we have also signed a defense logistics agreement. So this was done earlier in the year. So this defense logistics agreement allows the two countries to use each other's logistics, like port facilities, etc. for defense purposes can be used. So this is the agreement signed. The other part is about the Trump administration. So the unknown quantity which Trump administration brings along with it. This uncertainty will be reduced with respect to India-US defense relations because this is being done through the legislature. So we have already discussed this in news as well. So when you're covering news thoroughly, then editorials become a cakewalk. So this major defense partner concept, it says, is based on US treating India as its closest ally. So technology transfer will become easier, even dual use items. We discussed this about use in civilian as well as military purposes. For them to licensing will become easier. Next, we look at the question bank. The one question which we have picked up from the Hindu article for today is, discuss the significant amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Amendment Bill 2013. How far does this aim to strengthen the anti-corruption mechanism in India? So this is the question. Now this Prevention of Corruption Amendment Bill was introduced in 2013 in the Rajya Sabha by the former UPA government. So if bills are introduced in the Rajya Sabha, they do not lapse. So with the present government too, they continue. If the bill is introduced in Lok Sabha and stays pending in Lok Sabha, then it lapses. So this Prevention of Corruption Amendment Bill has been further amended. The proposals under this have been further amended by the present NDA government too, and these provisions have diluted the bill completely. So its major provisions, a critique of the Prevention of Corruption Amendment Bill is actually provided in this article. So it criticizes it, saying that some provisions like the definition of corruption, first of all, has changed. So with regard to definition, it is section 13(1)(d). So you should remember sections, specifically if there are some important sections, because UPSC sometimes asks you questions referring to a particular section, like they have done with respect to Intellectual Property Rights Act, that's this particular section. So they have done in such cases. So remember the important sections. So section 13(1)(d) of Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988, the actual act, it defines corruption broadly. But present amendment is trying to change this section 13(1)(d) so that it is narrowly defined. So corruption with respect to the new act will be fraudulent misappropriation of property under one's control and possession of disproportionate assets with intentional and illicit enrichment. So these two aspects are what is defined as corruption under the new bill. The original act mentioned corruption as including any valuable thing or pecuniary advantage by illegal gratification or by abusing his position as a public servant. So whether it is in monetary means or non-monetary aspects too. If power is abused, it is corruption. So there was a broad definition of corruption which present bill seeks to replace and change. So this is one big issue. Even the Law Commission had studied this proposed amendment and disagreed with this narrow definition. It said rather there should be much wider definition of corruption rather than narrowing it. But still the cabinet has approved this and it has been passed. So this is actually trying to support the bureaucrats rather than the fighting against corruption. So it says that a section of bureaucrats are demanding deletion of this provision on the ground that it inhibits its fearless decision making because it involves discretion. So there are some powers in the hands of the officers and they make these decisions, and these decisions may sometimes result in bona fide errors, means not intentional errors but errors have occurred. So in such cases too they may be charged under these provisions, is the fear of the bureaucrats. But even a former retired cabinet secretary who is known for his integrity, T.R.S. Subramaniam, he has said that there is no provision in the Prevention of Corruption Act which will result in an honest officer suffer. There are clear safeguards. Only if there is clear abuse of power resulting in financial or non-financial gains, then only an officer is pinned down. So this assurance has been given by him as well. So as we see that only if you look at only monetary benefits, then they may not be possible, because in high level corruption cases it is involving much further gratifications. Like non-monetary gratifications can be like a better posting to post-retirement benefits assured. So all these non-monetary transactions are also involved. So how will they be taken care of? How will they be dealt with if they are not under corruption? So that is a major question. Then second aspect on which the amendment talks of and is criticized is raising threshold of proof. So the existing law says that if a public servant has disproportionate assets, then there is corruption involved, a direct link, and corruption charges are framed against him. But the amendment now says that if there are disproportionate assets with a public officer, then first the link should be proved that this have been acquired through illicit means, corruption is involved, and then corruption charges can be framed against him. So this is delaying corruption. The prosecution has to prove this first. So that is raising threshold of proof. So what happens with this is, we have seen it earlier too, that before 1988, that when disproportionate assets were found and corruption charges were framed, the corrupt officials would put forward proof of alternative sources of income during the trial period, and then they would come out scot-free from the corruption charges. So the same thing may happen again too, which will make it difficult for the corrupt to be prosecuted. So this, the article says, has been added as an amendment without any recommendation of such sort being from any stakeholder. Still the government has put in this. So what are they intending to do is questionable, because they're trying to safeguard, delay prosecutions. So that intention is being highlighted here. The third point on which the criticism comes forth is that it will be now risky for bribe giver to give evidence against the bribe taker, because under the present law, the act without amendment, the bribe giver is given safeguards, because the bribe giver acts as a witness against the public official, the bribe taker. So with his witness and proof coming forward, only the charges can be framed and the corrupt is prosecuted. So now if the bribe giver, of course under the Corruption Acts, bribe givers are also supposed to be charged, and the bribe taker as well. So present act now amendment says that both will be equally charged. So when a person, bribe giver himself would be charged, then why would he come forward and act as a witness? So this will inhibit people to come forward, bribe givers to come forward and frame charges against corrupt officials. So again, question arises, whom is the government trying to save? This safeguard was essential for cases to come forth. Now cases won't come forth. Even the point put forth is that the Second Administrative Reforms Commission has also recommended, because there is a requirement that bribe giver also has to be prosecuted. So there should be a distinction between bribe givers. So there are coercive and collusive bribing. So coercive bribing is when the person has no other option, he is coerced and the only way out is to give a bribe. So that is called coercive bribing. Collusive is being together. Both are equal stakeholders, the giver and taker are involving in bribe. So to ensure this provision, it said that only coercive bribing should be given safeguards. The collusive bribing should result in prosecution of also the bribe giver. So how will this be proved? That there should be a 7-day window for declaration given. So within 7 days, if the bribe giver is giving it details about this and coming forward, then it means that he was not involved in the process. So then he is coerced into bribing. That is why he has come forward. So that is proved. So this provision would have been better rather than the present amendment. So this was not accepted. They did not accept this proposal. So finally it has not been inserted. Any bribe giver would be prosecuted. So again a questionable amendment. Then the next amendment which is questioned is prior sanction for prosecution. For any serving public servant to be prosecuted under the existing act, prior sanction is required. So prior sanction of the government or a higher official involved is required. So this protection is required because there can be frivolous complaints, harassment, persecution of the public officials. To protect them from this, prior sanction of the government authorities is required. So this has been extended to even the retired officers. So if a retired officer, a public servant is also prosecuted, then he will also require prior sanction for any action which he has done during his tenure, during his office. So this prior sanction will be required for them too. So this aspect is justifiable, is understand logical corollary, but then what is not understood is another unnecessary and pointless condition put forth, that if a private person approaches the government for sanction to prosecute a public servant for corruption, he would need a court order to this effect, that he should bring a court order and then the government gives sanction. So this again, why has this been inserted is not understood, again trying to delay the entire process of prosecution and then it would take place. So this is another point put forth. Then the next point amendment which is discussed and criticized is prior sanction for investigation. So this prior sanction is required for initiating a proceeding against the corrupt official, and now for investigating agencies, for inquiry to be conducted of a corrupt official, the prior sanction is required. So this will be a new section 17A which will be introduced in the act. So this would bar investigating agencies from even beginning an inquiry or investigation into the offences without prior approval from the higher government officials. So this amendment, actually earlier it was proposed that it would be obtained from Lokpal or Lokayukta. But now Rajya Sabha has changed this. It has recommended that this power has to be given to the authority competent to remove the person from office. So removal authority will be given this power to give prior approval, prior sanction. So now why has this been added to is not understood. Already there is section 19 in the Prevention of Corruption Act which protects officials from malified litigations. So then prior sanction 1 is already there. Then why this prior sanction before investigating? Means not even an inquiry can be initiated. So once inquiry takes place, then only evidence will come forth and then only a case can be made. But then for inquiry also there is prior sanction required. So they have inserted thus such a provision as well. Then the next provision criticized is reactivating the single directive. So this single directive clause was there earlier. In Vineet Narayan judgment, the Supreme Court held that this provision is illegal in 1997. So what does this single directive mean? That it was a government order that no senior officer of the rank of joint secretary or above could be investigated without permission from the government. So any investigation to be initiated against a senior officer, it requires the permission of the government. So Vineet Narayan judgment said that this is discriminatory. So this is illegal. That is why it was called as null and void. But then the government again brought it through an amendment in 2003. Again in 2014, the constitutional bench of the Supreme Court said this was unconstitutional as it affects right to equality. It's violating right to equality. So everybody should be treated equally. If there is prior permission required, it should be for all. Why senior officers should be given special protection? So this was again declared null and void. But then again the government has brought in this provision of single directive under the present amendment. So now we'll have to see what happens to this too, whether the judiciary comes forth and takes action against this, or sense prevails and the government removes these controversial amendments and passes an act which is true in the sense of on the intention of fighting against corruption rather than protecting the corrupt officials. So this is a wait and watch game. There are low chances now because the bill with these amendments have already been passed by the cabinet. It has been passed by the select committee of the parliament too. But now the present winter session is going to end. So there are no chances that this bill will be passed in the present session. So still now we have time till the next sessions of the Lok Sabha commences. So we'll have to wait and watch what is the strength developing in the public domain about this bill. So these are the article. This is the question for today. Thank you.